Hi there, this is Datila, and welcome to the TNAIW GoGo Power Rankings show. As always, I'm joined by my two co-hosts. The first being the star of the show, Burt Maclin, who has no relation to Steve Maclin.
How's it going?
And next is the godfather of the Power Rankings himself, the one and only Lucha.
If you think about it, I couldn't be the star if Lucha didn't create the rankings. So,
this is true.
Okay. Well, I just introduced you that way because I know that's what's in your contract.
Well, thank you. Thank you for adhering to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how Scott gave you that one, but it's whatever. I'm here. We're all here. It was about 2 days after the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What a game, man! That was a incredible game. Very close game.
I'm still tired from that game so long ago.
Me too. All right. So who do you guys think is going to make the Power Rankings this week?
I'm looking to see if Burt's magical words of wisdom come true, and the winner of the main event being number one.
Ooh, I wonder that too, especially because it was such a great main event.
I mean, we're not here to talk about the show, but just in my opinion, I wasn't really that big a fan of this show as far as like card wise goes, as far as who was on the show. But this match was a good match to main event this type of.
Definitely, I do agree. But before we get into the Power Rankings, Burt, how do you join the Power Rankings committee?
All you have to do is just message me on Twitter at Burt Maclin 11, and we'll get you in the committee. If you watch Impact every week, which I'm sure you do.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is message me on Twitter, Burt Maclin 11, and we'll get you in there. And yeah, it's just as simple as that.
Yep. As simple as that. As easy as 1, 2, 3.
And I was
ABC,
and before
1, 2, 3.
I was always going to say is,
yeah,
I believe in the person who's at number one, who I believe is going to be at number one. That's all I'm going to say.
Me too. With that being said, let's play these Power Rankings. Number 10, No Surrender PCO. Number 9, The Hex and James Mitchell. Number 8, X Division Champion Trey Miguel. Number 7, Myers and Cardona, The Major Players. Number 6, number 1 contender Rich Swann. Number 5, the Juggernaut Jordan Grace. Number 4, World Champion Josh Alexander. Number 3, Tag Team Champions The Dead Dolls. Number 2, World Champion Mickey James. Number 1, Digital Media Champion Joe Hendry. Wow, quite the interesting list, I have to say. Some of these people I was not expecting to be on here.
Well, and I actually kind of agree with Lucha's point that he made, that this kind of was more of a filler show. I don't want to say that. That kind of sounds like a negative word, like filler, usually when you hear that, but there were matches and the matches were good, but I think this was more of like telling a story going into Sacrifice. So
No surrender.
No surrender. Sorry.
You're getting your S shows mixed up.
I'm sorry.
Next thing he's gonna be calling Sacrifice Slammiversary.
Yeah.
Damn it.
It's okay. But let's start with this. Number 10, No Surrender PCO. He beat Shira, and I have to say I'm not surprised right there. I feel like they pushed PCO. He had incredible matches with Jonah, then that feud with Eddie Edwards, and it kind of just, he kind of went away for a little bit, and now he's back. So it makes total sense that PCO won this match. Or what are your thoughts on PCO being number 10 and him winning his match?
Bert, you got it.
Well, first of all, cheers to Impact for continuing, and I think just making PCO look like the monster that he was before he got there, and then now they're just making him look super strong. Even if he's not at the top of the card, it's the opening match, but he won in dominating fashion, and he looked good doing it. So yeah, I'm fine with him being at number 10. Actually, I'm glad to see him on the countdown. I'm glad to see him back.
Me too.
I mean, on my end, I'm just looking at it, trying to put this in comparison to last week's to see keep track of some movement throughout the rankings. And I mean, last week's number 10 was Bully Ray, as far as what the overall committee came up with. And PCO's win, getting in this title match, I would say gives him enough strength to take Bully out of the rankings. And number 10 is a good spot to have him at now that he's like in the picture, you know what I'm saying? He's in the scope of things. So 10 is a pretty good spot for him to be at.
No, I agree. I feel like PCO is gonna have a big maybe not a big moment, but I feel like he's gonna have she's gonna shine in that fatal 4-way match at No Surrender.
Definitely.
For sure.
All right. Number 9, the Hex and James Mitchell. The Hex making a surprise debut, attacking Taya Valkyrie and Jessica with the K because she's sick, while Rosemary was distracted on the ramp with James Mitchell. What are your thoughts, Burt? You can go first on the Hex debuting and a potential feud between them and the Death Dolls.
Well, first of all, let me just say that on my rankings this week, I actually had Hex higher than the Death Dolls. I know that might be blasphemous to some. I see Lucha looking at me, and I know I'm gonna get it when he goes. He's gonna lie to me, and that's fine. But I have a very short attention span, so when I'm kind of over the Death Dolls at this point, and so when a new fresh team comes in, and I've always been a fan of Allison Kay and Marty Bell, I'm glad to see them back in Impact. So I'm glad to see the Hex on here at number 9. I would have had them a little higher, even though they just debuted and attacked the Death Dolls. But again, I'm glad to see them at number 9. I think we're going to see them in Impact for a little while. So we're going to see them on the rankings going forward.
Lucha?
A lot of times I seem to be coming to Speedball Mike Bailey's rescue because he just keeps getting disrespected by the rankings committee, no matter what position he's in. All right, so last week, John Gresham was number 9, and he won his match on BTI and challenged Speedball. So what happens? This week, Speedball's on BTI. What does Speedball do? Speedball wins. What does he do after? Accept the challenge. And where's Speedball anywhere on this rankings? Like, the committee just constantly disrespects this man, and I don't understand what it is. I don't get it, especially for the Hex, who, I mean, all that stuff is fine and dandy, but they just came and kicked ass. Not in a match. They just came and kicked ass. The disrespect to put that over Speedball Mike Bailey, it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I think that it has to do with the fact that maybe not too many people, and this includes myself, watch BTI. I
don't even watch BTI.
It could be that. And so because a lot of people don't watch BTI and probably don't keep tabs on what's going on BTI, they probably like whatever. It's not part of the Impact show. I mean, even though I know it's part of Impact, but it's probably that's probably the reason why.
It's adding to it, it's like it's the heat before Raw, almost, it's like the pre-show,
Like I said, I don't even watch BTI, but I know at points during Impact, they will recap BTI and show things. And I saw Speedball win his match and accept John Gresham's challenge, just like I saw John Gresham win his match and issue the challenge. Well, so I just feel like the committee disrespects Speedball Mike Bailey a little too much for me personally.
I feel you. All right. Number 8, X Division champion Trey Miguel, who was not in action on this week's Impact, but he did have a backstage interview. And it seems like his feud with Crazy Steve is still going to continue. I I know he is our X Division champion, and champions carry a lot of weight in the power rankings. But I feel because he was just in a backstage segment this week, which is why he is at number 8 and not any higher on the rankings. Lucha, you want to go first on this one?
Well, I understand, you're shocked that he's not higher, but I also understand, he's also didn't do too much. I actually had him at number 2 on mine because, like you said, champions carry weight, and he's still, riding off of power from the prior weeks, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, like we said, me and Burt were saying, this show wasn't really, too, I don't want to say top heavy. It was more bottom heavy, but I don't know, you're gonna get a lot of crazy things in these power rankings with shows like this.
Yeah, Trey Miguel being at number 8 to me is a travesty. I think as a heel, he just prints money. I think I had him number 4, so Lucha had him slightly higher than me. So now I feel bad because, because the only reason I had it at number 4 is because I think the top 5 were so hard to decide this week, and when we get into that, I'll explain more. But yeah, no, Trey Miguel at number 8, I just feel like it's a little too low. Give me 6 or 5. You know what I mean? But
I mean, and we're both right in our points to be upset, but we should also accept the fact, at least, that he's on it this week. Last week he wasn't even ranked. So he's actually on. His stock is up.
Yeah,
we should be buying in the Trey Miguel stock because he's back on the 10.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Yeah. I do. I'm gonna buy myself some Trey Miguel stock now that you mention it.
It comes with a free can of spray paint.
Okay. Number 7. I'm surprised these two were grouped together. I know they're a tag team, but I'm just surprised that they grouped them together. Myers and Cardona, the major players, considering what happened in this week's episode of Impact. I mean, Cardona opened the show and he had a couple of segments throughout the entire show, but yet Brian Myers won his match. And as we get to number 1, Matt Cardona, who was in the main event of this week's show, lost. So I'm surprised they grouped them together for this. But Lucha, what your thoughts on them being grouped together for this week? And would you have ranked them separately for this week? Would you have not included Myers? Your thoughts, Lucha?
Nope, this is perfect for me because this is another example of Brian Myers carrying Mid Cardona and the major players to success in Impact Wrestling, and more specific, the power rankings. Because this week, if it wasn't for Brian Myers winning his match, Cardona wouldn't have sniffed the top 10. But you got to give him respect because just like with PCO winning his match, getting at number 10 and being in the radar, so is Brian Myers. So, and then, Cardona was in the main event. He lost. But just because he's attached to the winner, the gold, the most professional wrestler, that was enough. That gave him weight. So I would have kept them together. I'm glad they're together because it proves the point.
This isn't the mid-card mafia. These are the major players, okay? And I think Impact does everything perfectly, but they did not treat Matt Cardona right this week. That was disgusting. Give the man a dressing room. Give him some shrimp.
He got to put it in the broom closet and then
give him like a box of Franzia wine and like some fish sticks or something. They couldn't even give him anything. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
So you're gonna blame his conditions that he was under for his poor performance?
If I wouldn't have went out there if I was him. He wasn't.
PCO gets ready in a dark corner with a chain link fence in front of him, and he just yells whoever he's fighting the name every week. You can't. No. That's not how that works. I won't allow it.
Okay, and going back to what you said first, I group them together as well, just because they are a team until whatever happens. So They are the major players. So one got a win, one didn't. So I think that's why they're at number 7. So this week, Brian Myers did carry them to number 7.
That's all they
Fair
need.
point. Fair point.
This top 10 is very prestigious. So number 7, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people, there's only 10 spots, baby.
Number 6, number 1 contender, Rich Swann, who had an incredible video package on this week's episode of Impact Wrestling. I feel like he's at number 6 because he is the number 1 contender, but he really didn't have a match or any backstage segments, and that video package probably wouldn't have made him on this week's Power Rankings if he wasn't the number 1 contender.
I think it was the combination of him being number 1 contender, that video package, and the fact that he stole on Kenny King, and Kenny King didn't do anything back but just get in his face and keep talking. Like when Rich swung on him and got him square in the face, Kenny didn't do nothing. So he punked him, in my opinion, and that's good enough to earn a number 6 spot for me in my book.
I think that promo was outstanding. I don't think Rich Swann is going to win against Josh Alexander, but I do think we're seeing like the rebuild of Rich Swann to like a main eventer. That you could tell that he sounded disappointed in himself for losing against Kenny Omega. Like he almost let the company down, and you bought that. So I also think, and I'm going to call it right now. I think that because I already think that Steve Maclin will be the one to beat Josh Alexander. I do think Rich Swann will be the one to dethrone Steve Maclin, because I do think Rich Swann deserves like a proper win because a run, especially since he did win in an empty arena. You know, he didn't really get that moment, and I think he deserves that moment. You know what I mean? Because he is an Impact guy. You know what I mean? He's been loyal to the company, so I do think so. I'm fine with where he is at, and I do think we're going to see Rich Swann as world champion eventually.
Well, you know, you were right about Masha winning the number 1 contender, and Mickey James beating Jordan Grace. So if that happens, it just happens, I'm gonna wear a hat and tip it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also keep saying Johnny Swinger is going to be champion too. So, and that one's not paying off yet. So,
I mean, maybe he's got a chance to beat Joe Hendry.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Speaking of Johnny Singer, did he ever get pushed? I mean, I know they left him on that thing backstage. I wonder if he ever got pushed.
Well, he needs a push in more ways. He needs a push in more ways than one.
He just needs to stop getting those stop-start pushes.
Yeah.
I wonder who's the guy that Sticky Dice is going to bring in.
Dun, dun, dun. Dramatic music.
Yeah. Number 5, the Juggernaut, Jordan Grace. She defeated the debuting Stephanie DeLander, which I thought was not a pretty bad match. You know, I thought it was a good match. But you know something that they gave her mic time before the match. So if she would have won, I honestly could have seen Stephanie DeLander on this week's Power Rankings. But because she didn't, and Jordan Grace being the former Knockouts champion, I can understand why she definitely made the number 5 list this week. Bert, you want to go?
Yeah, I think that at this point, even if Jordan's not the world champion or anywhere near that scene, she's on a whole other level. So I think she's going to be a permanent on the Power Rankings for the near future, unless like she gets injured. I just think that she's just in a whole different league at this point than most on the show. She is the main eventer through and through. So number 5, that seems about right this week.
Lucha?
Man, Bert pretty much hit it all there. I ain't got nothing else to add. She's still riding high from her very strong 2022, where she didn't really lose that much. She didn't lose at all, really, from the moment after the Ultimate X until Hard to Kill, basically. So, you know, her still having a strong presence on the top 10 is expected. Number 5 is a good spot for her to be after the strong win. And we'll just see how she can hold it down and keep at the top 10.
All right. Number 4, our world champion, Josh Alexander, who was just involved in a backstage interview. I want to mention something. Like, things are not really looking good for Josh Alexander in the power rankings. I mean, last week he failed to lead his team to victory, and this week he was just in a backstage segment. I mean, I know he's a world champion, and that carries weight, which is why he is in the top 5. But I just feel like, what's going on here? Like, he hasn't been number 1 since what? Like, the Hard to Kill?
No, not even Hard to Kill, because I'm pretty sure Mickey was number 1.
Mickey James was number 1 Hard to Kill.
So probably leading up to it, maybe. I don't know. I was thinking the same. Like, Josh is kind of the 2023 hasn't necessarily been kind to him. Let me see. There was a couple weeks ago he was like 7th or 8th or something like that. And that was just crazy. I know last week he was number 2, so he's still on a downward slope from last week. So it's crazy. It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So no, but Burt, what are your thoughts on Josh Alexander and what his spots in the rankings over the last couple of weeks?
I just think that there's other stuff going on and him being number 4 is because he's the world champion, but that doesn't mean that necessarily he's going to be ahead of the people who are ahead of him, as we're going to see, just because I think that the stories that they're involved in are a lot more interesting at this point than just Josh continuing his reign as world champion. I'm not saying that that's boring, because he is in a record-setting reign at this point, but it is just kind of business as usual.
No, yeah, definitely business as usual till we get to No Surrender, and probably maybe after No Surrender too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see where Josh lands after No Surrender on the power rankings.
Well, I mean, all I know is it's going to be a little difficult, because it just seems like so far in 23, no matter where Josh is, Mickey's always like right over her. So he's gonna have to do a lot to make that jump and hit back to number 1 if he wants to.
Number 3, tag team champion Stud Death Dolls. So, wow, it's really nice to see them this high on the power rankings, especially because they were so MIA for so many weeks in the power rankings. But I feel like now that they got a victory, and with the debut of the Hex, I feel like we can actually have like a solid feud for them. So I do expect them to see them being on the power rankings going forward. Maybe not as high as they are now. I guess it depends on what they're doing, whether they're having a backstage segment or if they're MIA. But I do think because of this feud with the Hex, they will be more consistently on this week's on the power rankings. Lucha, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to a prior episode where I said that the committee wants to vote for the Death Dolls. They just don't get the opportunity to, and it seems like ever since I've said that, they just keep going higher and higher, and having more dominance from January to February in the power rankings. They were 7th last week. So for them to be jumping up to number 3, they're getting time on TV. They're getting good quality dubs, even though there was some trickery or some foolery in this win. But at the end of the day, a win is a win. So it's good to see them there. It's good to see their progression throughout the power rankings throughout the years, and we'll see how long they can keep this up. It's crazy. They've probably had more consistent representation on the power rankings than the men's tag champions since that point.
Yeah, he's right. And yeah, to add to what he said, it's good to see them on the rankings. I think they definitely deserve it at this point for not being featured for so long, especially since they are tag team champions. But and yeah, I think going forward, even if they're not number 3, I think we're going to see them more, since it seems like they're bringing in somebody for them to feud with in the Hex. So, yeah, I think we'll see the Death Dolls as on the top 10 at some point going forward.
Definitely, I do agree with that. Number 2, world champion Mickie James. She was in action on this week's episode. She was involved in an intergender match, teaming alongside Tommy Dreamer to take on John Skyler and Jason Hodge. And honestly, like, Mickie James has just been on a roll. And she got the win for her team. But I have to say, Tommy Dreamer was on that winning team too, but yet he's not on the power rankings. Why do you think that is? Lucha, do you want to go first?
Yeah, because it's real simple. You know, Tommy hasn't put in the work and have been undefeated for the past year almost, like Mickie has. So, you know, every time all Mickie has to do is really show up and win, and she's guaranteed top 2 on the power rankings just because of that and because of the strength of her 2022. So, and that's why I was a little ticked at the booking of this match. So I'm like, now we're just padding her stats. Now Scott's on to everything, and he's trying to get this Mickie train, you know, on full swing and convince us and sway us to keep Mickie at the top. You know, he's starting to affect this. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
And there's a reason why Tommy's not here, and that's because Mickie did all the work and pretty much carried into the victory. He's like the third string cute. You know what I mean? He's not getting any reps. You know, he's not really. And I'll say, the only reason for me that Mickey's number 2 this week is because while she beat somebody named that were the good hands, our number 1 beat someone who's major. And we'll let you do with that what you will right there. That's a tease in the business.
Oh, man.
That's a good point. That's a good point right here. This is why Burt is the start of the show, because he always brings up good points.
No, stop.
No, stop. Now you're going to be shy and bashful. Get out of here.
All right. Number 1, do you believe in our digital media champion, Joe Hendry?
I do.
I do too. Lucha?
I mean, I believe, don't get me wrong, I believe he's one of the greatest musical artists in professional wrestling history. I'm trying to figure out if there's like history involved here. Like, is he the first digital media champion to make it number 1 on the power rankings? We might have to see about that. That's a lot of research though, so I don't know if we'll do it. But for the sake of time and everything, if someone who watches this wants to go and prove me wrong and say otherwise, then I'm more than welcome for it. But as far as I know, Joe Hendry is the first digital media champion to make it the number 1 on the power rankings, and that's huge.
Yeah, that is huge. And like, I think that's also 2 things. I think 1, obviously, we brought it up, that we've noticed a pattern that the main event winner is usually somewhere near the number one spot. But going back to what you said, the digital media champion being in the number 1 spot, I think that just shows how far this belt has come. From when it kind of started as not a gimmick at all, but like you would see it defended more on the Impact Plus or the Impact Insiders show on YouTube, I think it was. So, and now you're seeing the belt main event Impact, you know, on TV. You know, it's big time. You know, we're seeing it defended on pay-per-views. So I think that's both the wrestler that adds to it, you know, who's been building it up, Jordan before him, Brian Myers. So I just think each time the belt keeps getting taken to new heights. So good, kudos to both of them, Impact and Joe Hendry.
We're so offbeat with that.
Yeah,
right.
So offbeat, you know.
It's damn near impossible for us to be like on beat with it because, you know, if there's East Coast West Coast beef when it comes to the timing there.
East Coast West Coast, yes. I definitely do agree. You're the only East Coaster in the amongst us, anyways.
Yeah, that's why I need Jeff to come through with his New Yorkness, so I can kind of not be alone. But he's still a ways away from me. He's farther than me than y'all are from each other. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anywho, Joe Henry being number one, I totally agree with. I feel like he's just so over with the crowd. Like, people love him. They move their arms back and forth every time he comes out. And he's a good wrestler too. He had a good match against Matt Cardona. And that's mentioned his hit single Edge's Bitch is number one on Spotify and on the Billboard 100 charts. So it's like, of course he's going to be number one, but he's just really good, and I believe in him.
And yeah, he looks like a main eventer. He's not going to be. It's not like him. Me saying that he's not going to be digital media champion means that like they're just going to take it off him for no reason. But I think he's going to be a main eventer sooner rather than later. Like in that scene, when as soon as he's done being digital champion, I expect him to go directly to like the main event scene, and start challenging more of the top guys.
Well, so you don't think he's gonna like become X Division champion first and then work his way to the main event?
I don't think he goes that route. That's not the direct. That's not. Yeah, no, not everyone's gonna do an option C or start out in the X Division, and that's why you could argue why I think the X Division belt is the most important belt in Impact, and just in terms of what it means. I do think that the digital media champion has definitely slid into that number 2 mid-card belt where you look at that person as the guy that could be a future world champion. You know what I mean? It's our Intercontinental title now. You know what I mean?
But do you think there's a universe that exists to where he can like still go against the main event caliber guys, but still be digital media champion? Like that's something that I can see happening as well.
I could definitely see something like that where somebody being a champ with those two belts.
I don't know if he'd get the belt, but as far as like him fighting like the Eddie Edwards and all them and getting wins over them.
Oh, he's already beat Moose, who's a former world champion. So
exactly, and Cardona.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So we covered all the top 10s this week. Do you guys have any last remarks or anything you guys want to say before we get ready to sign off?
I'm kind of upset not to see Bullet Club on here. I know it was merely just a promo, but they hyped up bringing Kenta in, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be them versus Time Machine, which should be a banger. It should be an instant classic. You know what I mean? So I hope to see Bullet Club on the top 10 as well as the tag team champions, just because they are the tag team champions. So
yeah,
and just to add, well, I mean, with Bullet Club, with them being 4th on Power Rankings last week and them dropping to nowhere to be found on this week, maybe a win in that type of scenario would be good and getting them back to where they need to be, which is top 5 week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely expect to see them having a couple matches before the pay-per-view. So
definitely, and I do think that after No Surrender, I think they're gonna get a chance to face Motor City Machine Guns again for those tag titles.
Yeah, I see them winning them at Rebellion. That I think that's one of the bigger shows of the year. It's going to be up in Canada, so I see them winning, them holding on until then.
Same, definitely. All right, well, I guess that's it for today's show. Make sure you guys check out our friends across the pond, the MIC Craigson, and of course the one and only Peter Nixon for their Talking Bloody Nonsense show. But also, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever TNAIW drops not only this video, but LL TNA, Talking Bloody Nonsense, or even their main show.
The big show, the big one.
Yeah, the big show. Or is the big show, big bad show tonight? And make sure you guys tune in live every Sunday, normally at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on Twitch for the main show. But aside from that, we'll see you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.